Romeca Blackmon, she just said goodbye to her 6-year-old son. She gave him a kiss and told him to have a great day in first grade. Moments later, she was shot 3 times. One of those bullets hit her in the face.
You know that feeling when you write your kid a sweet note in their lunchbox, drop them off at school, and think it's just going to be a normal Monday morning? That's exactly what Romeca Meeks-Blackmon thought on September 8, 2025. But within minutes of dropping off her 6-year-old son Carlos at school in Chicago's South Loop, she'd be lying in a pool of blood on the street, shot in the face. And the worst part? The person who pulled that trigger walked free for almost 3 months. If cases like this make you as angry as they make me, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to Crime Files, and smash that notification bell so you never miss when we expose injustice like this. Because this story, it's going to make your blood boil. So let's talk about Romika for a minute, because she deserves that much. This wasn't just another statistic. Another headline you scroll past. Romika was 31 years old, studying to become a nurse, working hard to build a better life for herself and her little boy. Her mom, Tina, described her as the kind of person who lit up every room she walked into. Kind, sweet, supportive, the life of her friend group. She was the type of mother who'd wake up early to pack her son's lunch and slip handwritten notes inside telling him how proud she was of him. That morning, the note read, "Happy Monday, son. This is a fresh start to this day, and you can start off strong. Always remain yourself. You're the coolest, smartest, and funniest kid I know. I love you so much, and you make me so proud. Have a great day. Mommy loves you." Think about that for a second. She was trying to give her son a fresh start to his week, telling him to remain himself, to be strong. And just minutes after writing those words, she'd be dead. Her son would never get another note from his mother again. But here's where this gets complicated, and honestly infuriating. Because Romika's death wasn't random. It wasn't robbery gone wrong or some stranger attacking her. No, this involved her ex, a man named Carlos Smith Sr., and his new girlfriend, a woman named Quadija Johnson. And the reason they were all in the same place that morning? That's what nobody can quite figure out. See, Romika and Carlos Sr. shared a 6-year-old son together. Their relationship had ended, and Carlos had moved on with Quadija. In fact, Carlos and Quadija had just had a baby together 6 months earlier, a little girl. So now we got this messy situation where there's a child from a previous relationship, a new baby, and from what we can tell, a whole lot of bad blood brewing underneath the surface. Now, I want you to picture this scene because it's important to understand how this all went down. It's about 9 in the morning on a Monday. Romika has just dropped her son off at school near Cermak Road and State Street. It's a busy area, people everywhere, parents doing the school run, just normal life happening all around. At the exact same time, Carlos Sr. and Quadija are nearby. They're switching their 6-month-old baby from his Mercedes SUV into Quadija's Chevy Cruze. And here's the thing that prosecutors pointed out later. This location had nothing to do with their lives. They didn't live there. The baby didn't go to school there. So why were they in that exact spot at that exact time when they knew Romika would be dropping off their son? When Romika drove by after the drop-off, something triggered a confrontation. We don't know exactly what words were exchanged first, but witnesses say the two women, Romika and Quadija, started arguing. Voices got raised. And this is where things get really dark. Carlos Sr. didn't try to calm things down. According to multiple witnesses who were there that morning, he did the opposite. He started getting physical with Romika, his ex, the mother of his child. Witnesses say he was swinging her car door on her repeatedly, using it like a weapon. Then he put her in a chokehold from behind while hitting her with his other hand. Let that sink in for a moment. A grown man, restraining a woman, holding her in a chokehold while his current girlfriend stands nearby. What do you think is going through Romika's mind at this point? She's probably terrified, trying to break free, wondering how a Monday morning school run turned into this nightmare. And while Carlos is holding Romika in this chokehold, Quadija starts making threats. Witnesses heard her telling Romika she was going to shoot her. She told Carlos to let Romika know she had a gun. Then, while Romika is still being restrained by her ex, Khadija walks to her car and retrieves a handgun. Now, I need you to understand something here. Khadija had a valid FOID card and a concealed carry license. She was legally allowed to carry that weapon. But having the legal right to carry a gun doesn't give you the right to use it whenever you feel like it, especially not in a situation like this. Khadija came back with that gun and shot Romika multiple times. Witnesses said she fired once, paused, and then fired again. Romika was in the face and leg at close range. She collapsed right there on the street in front of everyone, bleeding out in broad daylight, while parents and kids were still in the area from the school run. So Romika is lying on the ground, dying, blood pooling around her body. You'd think at this point there'd be panic, right? You'd think the people involved would be shocked at what just happened, maybe trying to help, calling for an ambulance, showing some kind of human emotion. But here's what witnesses actually saw, and this is the part that made my stomach turn when I first read about it. After Khadija shot Romika, after this woman was lying there dying on the street, Khadija and Carlos fist bumped each other. They fist bumped, like they'd just won a game or accomplished something together. Both of them stayed at the scene, covered in Romika's blood, and witnesses heard Khadija sing, "I'm licensed to carry," like that somehow justified what had just happened. Emergency services rushed Romika to Stroger Hospital, but it was too late. She died from her injuries. That little boy who'd opened his lunchbox that day to find his mother's loving note, telling him it was a fresh start, that he could be strong, he'd never see his mother again. At 6 years old, he watched his whole world collapse. Now here's where this case goes from tragic to absolutely infuriating. The police arrived at the scene. They arrested Khadija right there. She was taken into custody. And you'd think, okay, there were witnesses. This happened in broad daylight. She admitted to shooting Romika. This should be pretty straightforward, right? Wrong. Days later, Khadija was released without any charges. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office said there was insufficient information to make a charging decision at this time. Let me repeat that. A woman was shot dead in the street in front of multiple witnesses. The shooter was arrested at the scene covered in blood, and they let her walk free. Can you imagine being Romika's family? Her mother, Tina McMiller, who just lost her daughter and was now taking care of her traumatized grandson, had to watch her daughter's killer go home, had to see this woman walking around free, while Romika was in the ground. The community was outraged. A petition started circulating, demanding that charges be filed. People wore pink to a vigil held for Romika in West Englewood on September 12th. They weren't going to let this be swept under the rug, forgotten like so many other cases of violence against women in this country. But there was more to this story that was about to come out. See, there was a history here that made this whole situation even more complicated and, frankly, more suspicious. Back in December 2024, months before the shooting, Khadija had filed a stalking and no-contact order against Romika. She claimed that Romika had made verbal threats against her through family members. So this protective order that Khadija filed against Romika got granted in July 2025, just 2 months before the shooting. But here's something interesting. According to records, this order was never actually served to Romika. She never officially received it. And Khadija claimed in these court documents that she and Romika had never even met in person before. Now, Romika's family says this was all part of a plan, that Khadija was deliberately trying to create a paper trail against Romika to make it look like she was the aggressor, like she was a dangerous one. And when you look at what happened next, you start to wonder if they might be right about that. Reports also indicate that Romika had her own protective order against Carlos Sr. So you've got this situation where both women had tried to get legal protection, where there's clearly been ongoing conflict and tension between all these people. And somehow, on that September morning, they all ended up in the same place at the same time. For nearly 3 months, nothing happened. Romika was dead and buried. Her son was living with his grandmother, completely shut down emotionally. Tina McMiller described him as not want to be around anyone anymore. This kid who'd been told by his mom that he was the coolest, smartest, Funniest kid she knew. He'd just completely withdrawn from the world. And during those 3 months, the community kept the pressure on. They refused to let this case die quietly. They kept sharing Romika's story, kept demanding justice, kept asking why this woman who shot someone in broad daylight in front of witnesses was walking around free. Finally, on December 3rd, 2025, almost exactly 3 months after Romika's death, police showed up at Quadaja Johnson's home in Des Plaines and arrested her. This time, she was charged with first-degree murder. The next day, December 4th, Quadaja appeared in court for her detention hearing. And this is where some really important details came out. The judge heard the evidence, heard about the fist bump after the shooting, heard about how Quadaja and Callous celebrated in the street after killing someone. And the judge said something that needed to be said. Celebrating in the street after shooting someone is not self-defense. Quadaja had been claiming self-defense this whole time. She had a concealed carry license. She was arguing that she felt threatened, that she had the right to defend herself. But the judge wasn't buying it. The judge denied bond and ordered her to remain in custody. During this hearing, it also came out that Quadaja was 7 weeks pregnant at the time. Her next court date was set for December 23rd, 2025. But you know what's interesting? Callous Sr. still hasn't been charged with anything. Even though witnesses say he was the one who physically restrained Romika while his girlfriend went to get the gun. After that court hearing, Callous Sr. actually spoke to reporters outside the courthouse, and what he said was pretty telling. He claimed that everything the prosecutors described, everything the witnesses said they saw, none of it happened the way they explained it. He said, "I was there and I know for a fact none of that happened how they just explained it. But my truth will get out here." His truth, not the truth. His truth. Like there are multiple versions of reality, and he's got his own special one where he didn't hold his ex in a chokehold while his current girlfriend shot her dead in the street. Meanwhile, back at home, Tina McMillan was trying to pick up the pieces of her shattered family. She told reporters that the 3 months since her daughter's death had been the most painful, terrible time of her life. She's now raising her 7-year-old grandson, watching him struggle with trauma that no child should ever have to experience. There was one bright spot in December. The Chicago Police Department and a local towing company called ENR Towing organized a Secret Santa surprise for young Callous. They showed up with tow trucks decorated like reindeer, brought thousands of dollars worth of toys, and presented Tina with a check for $3,500 to help with expenses. An R&B artist named Zion Ollie even performed Christmas carols for the family. The community was trying to show this little boy that he wasn't alone, that people cared about him and his mother. A GoFundMe was set up to help with Callous' future education and needs. Because here's the thing, this child has lost his mother forever. He's going to grow up with that trauma. With those memories of the day everything changed. No amount of toys or money can fix that, but at least people were trying to help. So now we're left with this case, still working its way through the court system. Quadaja is behind bars waiting for trial. Callous Sr. is free, telling reporters about his version of the truth. And little Callous is growing up without his mother, being raised by his grandmother, trying to process a level of violence and loss that most adults couldn't handle. This brings me to some questions I need you to think about. What makes someone capable of taking another person's life in broad daylight and then celebrating it with a fist bump? How do you restrain a woman while someone else shoots her and then claim you did nothing wrong? What kind of hatred or jealousy builds up between people that leads to a moment like this on a Monday morning school run? And maybe most importantly, how do we as a society let someone who commits murder in front of witnesses walk free for 3 months while a family is left screaming for justice? If this case disturbed you like it disturbed me, I need you to do something right now. Subscribe to Crime Files if you haven't already, hit that like button, and share this video because Romika's story deserves to be heard. Drop a comment below telling me what you think should happen to everyone involved in this case. And remember, justice delayed is justice denied, but we won't let Romika be forgotten.